Okay, so I think we are live on YouTube. I'll just wait for Isa to confirm. Okay. Oh no. I think we are live on YouTube. I'll just wait for Isa to confirm. This is not going to work. Why is it doing that? We are live on YouTube. I don't want to hear me saying that like 5 more times. Hang on, let me close YouTube. Why is it doing that? Okay. So that should work. Okay. Hi, everyone who has just joined. We are spotlighting the panel because we are live on YouTube for the first 30 minutes. So if you wouldn't mind turning off your microphones and shutting down your video just for the first 30 minutes, because this is the free access live on YouTube. And then for the next 60 minutes, it's the private salon, and we will all be opening up our video and opening the mics. Okay. And so Isa said everything is good. We're live on YouTube. So hi, everybody on YouTube. And welcome to the October Heroine Salon. As I was saying to the panel members, I have like a desk packed with notes and notebooks to be taking lots of notes and making sure I don't miss any of the fabulous questions and such that came up while I was reviewing all of the submissions, of which there were 38. Not just the submissions that got selected for a panel. So welcome to the October's Hero Wine Salon. Let's hope we don't have too many technical difficulties with this first one. This month, we are exploring the woman you're becoming versus the woman you were raised to be. Hi, Christine. We're actually muting our microphones and turning off our video for the first 30 minutes just until we finish with the panel. And then we're going to invite everyone in. So, Susanna, you're not supposed to be hiding your video. So I don't know if you are, but you're a panel. So you're supposed to be there. Technical difficulties. Okay, so these four pieces. So the hello to the panel members. I'm going to introduce everyone. We have Linda Yetman, who wrote the piece, "The Hug That I Didn't Give," a brilliant piece. Hopefully, all of you have read the Salon Stories. We have Lesley Christine Tipton, who wrote the piece, "How Much Is Enough?" We have Amanda Coleman Wright, who wrote Origin Story. And we also have Susanna Quintana, who wrote Who Knew a Butt Dial Would Lead to My Awakening. So, welcome to the four panel members. These four pieces. Hi, Amanda. We're just turning off our video for the first 30 minutes so that we can be live on YouTube. And then I'm going to invite you to open your video. So, these four pieces absolutely gutted me because they're not just neat transformation stories, right? Every single one of these pieces show that we are all still in the midst of our messy middles. And all of us are still trying to figure it out. So, what you are about to hear is Linda questioning her body's refusal to give a hug and whether that was right or wrong. Lesley realizing at a garage sale that she'd been living behind an invisible wall her entire life. And now she's breaking free while her mother hoards 10 minutes away. And then we have Amanda, who is trying to figure out how to raise her kids while she's still becoming herself through a massive change that she actually experienced. And then we have Susanna, who at age 57 is still trying to remove herself from the pre-training she received as she was growing up. The main theme that all these pieces speak to each other. and they complicate each other. And that's exactly what a salon is about. It's a way for these pieces to raise questions that we as a group of smart women can then explore together. And we're going to do that as a big group. But first of all, I would like to go and have a discussion with the panel members for 30 minutes. Now, we do only have 30 minutes, so I will be moving people along and such. So please don't take offense if I move you along, but we're going to try and have everyone have an equal amount of time. So the main theme that I did see woven through all of the panel submissions, but also through all of the non-featured submissions, is unique representations and relationships with loss. So I've decided to weave in loss as our theme today for our questioning. And we may drift off of that theme, but that's what the salon is all about, right? It's seeing where the discussion takes us. So I'm going to go to Linda first. I have a question for Linda. Linda, in the ICU that day, your body just refused to move.
Mm-hmm.
And you write that your mind is still catching up to what your
Mm-hmm.
body knew.
Mm-hmm.
And you end with uncertainty about whether this is about becoming yourself or losing yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Mm-hmm.
after a month of distance, which one do you think that is? And can transformation be both finding yourself and losing yourself simultaneously? It's my
Mm-hmm.
question for you.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Thank you, Lisa, and to be part of this panel. Um, that's an excellent question that I probably ask myself every day. And I think it's a bit of both for me and my circumstances is I've been working very hard in the last, well, years, but in the last few years about boundary setting and, trying to do that. And that is part of who the woman becoming, it was around that
Hmm.
piece. But in order to do that, the experience that I wrote about was massive for me to do that. And I can remember as clear as I'm looking into this video now when the part where I did not, I couldn't get out of the chair. There was a part of my brain that was, trying to coordinate to get up and move, and I simply couldn't do it. I just, and I can remember that. And so that was the beginning. Well, I can't say the beginning, but I think it was the pivot moment where I recognized something, I was losing something, and that's
Hmm.
what it was. So for me right now, every day it's a reminder of one thing or the other about that moment. And I still feel, I wrote about it, I still feel guilty, still do that, and I still and being drawn back into going on automatic pilot again and doing that. But I have not done that. So I think it's both. And I think that's the way it has to be, to change, oftentimes emotionally, physical, or whatever, there is a loss, um, in order to make room energetically
Yes.
for something else to happen, right? So
Yes.
that's my
So maybe the
perspective.
losing is making room for the finding, and that's why it is
Yeah.
happening.
And
So
that is, yeah, and that's because I do believe in the energetics of all experiences. And I think this is, but it's very uncomfortable still, Lisa. I'll say that I'm not at peace, with, with things how things are going. But yeah,
so tell us what you lost, Linda, specifically.
I lost a piece of my old identity. And that old identity that was very, very strong in exactly what I wrote about was always being on call, helping out, doing this, that piece. And as a nurse, I have lost a piece of my nursing identity because
Hmm.
a big part of Linda is wrapped up in Linda as a nurse. So a part of my identity was definitely lost. And then, of course, it's the strain on the relationships within the family that's, ongoing. And there's a loss that's there. So those are the two major ones for
I'm
me.
going to ask you about the loss of identity because
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm,
think it runs through every single essay that we
right.
have here. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why loss came out as the major theme. And one of the
Mm-hmm.
questions I had for later, and we can discuss again in the 60 minutes, but I think it's probably an important one to ask now, is um, are there pieces of that identity you lost that you miss and wish you didn't have to give up?
Mm. Before I answer that, when I read the other pieces from my co-panelists, I was like gobsmacked by how much of their writing resonated with a part of me. That was one thing that I want to put out there. And I think that's a really good question, Lisa. I don't think, I think I'm working through what that feels like for me and to be okay with it. But I also know that loss is a healthy loss, that this is
Hmm.
something that I will, be much better for, when as time goes on and I process more, write more. Yeah.
So right now you don't miss any part of that identity, but you're very
I
fresh
don't,
in this place.
it, it's very fresh. It's still raw,
Yes,
and
yes.
I'm also at a place in my career, in my nurse, like all this is happening at one time. And, about trying to make decisions because I'm still, practicing um, as a nurse in certain areas of nursing. So it's all happening the one time. So what I'm trying to
Mm-hmm.
do is take my time with this as I move through it. Yeah.
Um, Thank you very much for your piece, Linda. It was very
Mm-hmm.
vulnerable, and I think it probably resonated with a huge number of people, especially the whole piece that we didn't talk about, which is this whole somatic reaction of your body that
Mm,
basically just said no. And I think as we are getting older as females, we are more
absolutely.
in touch with our bodies and when what our bodies are telling us. And I think that
Mm-hmm.
is one of the blessings. I know there are a few, but it is one of the blessings of going through
Mm-hmm.
menopause as well, as it really puts us in
Mm-hmm.
touch in a deep
Mm-hmm.
way with
Mm-hmm.
our cycle, with the cycle of life.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to move to Lesley now because I want to talk about your loss. Um, you described for me, which was the biggest moment in your piece. You said that you were at a garage sale with your mother, and she said, they're different from us poor people. It just broke my heart when I read that line. I also grew up in a family that had the same kind of relationship with money that you talk about in your piece. And you say that that was the invisible wall that you'd been living behind your whole life. So, my question to you is you are specifically claiming space for bigger dreams than your family can imagine. But isn't there something protective as well about lowered expectations? What does your family lose if you succeed in breaking this pattern? And is it less important than what you gain? And that's not an accusatory question, it's just a curiosity question.
Okay, that's an interesting question.
Mm,
Um, I feel like because my family has gone through, like my immediate family, like me and my partner and our children have
yeah.
gone through, and we have done a big downsize by 90% so that we could travel. And that was sort of creating that space for something else to come in, for something that felt a little bit bigger. So we've done that once before. It's been almost 10 years since we did that. And we traveled for about 5 years. In that process, that was interesting because my kids were at the time 7 and 9 years old. And of course, we were in our traveling phase when the pandemic began. And
Oh,
their memories of our traveling are not the same as my memories of our traveling. So sometimes I'm confronted with that idea of what they feel like they have lost
mm,
in us going out to do this thing that we really wanted to do already. So we're having multiple phases of the same thing, I think, which I think everybody encounters multiple phases of those same patterns. through life, and they feel like they lost some things in their childhood by us going out and traveling. So for
And
me, it was like my dream. It was what I always wanted to do. And I thought we were
yeah.
giving them this huge gift. And I don't know if they'll ever look back on it and see it as a gift, because the part that they remember the most is the pandemic hitting and being sort of stuck in a place for a long time in this tiny little space. However, it gave us another gift, which was moving back here where my family is. And that's been a huge gift for them because they're near families. And without having done the first thing, we would have gotten here. So everything goes in a cycle, it all connects to each other. So we couldn't have gotten here without having done that piece first. At the moment, I am moving toward a new, bigger dream. So we are living in a house again. We're living a little bit more of a typical life as much as we can. We're very outside of the box family. So we're living much more in a typical way at the moment, but I do have some bigger dreams. And as far as what will be lost to get them, it doesn't feel like as much now, because maybe partly because for me, I don't feel like I'm like what I'm gaining is completely worth it.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm also giving it time. My kids are teenagers now, 16, almost 16 and 18. So we're also giving it time to where I'm letting it be like, we're not going to make any big changes until they have sort of finished up their childhood. So we are allowing for that space. But once we fully shift into that next space, I imagine opening it up quite a bit more and
So my
really
question
throwing
is,
myself in.
yeah, so my question is with the woman that you're becoming, because you're talking about a new dream and you're talking about your past dream. So with with the woman that you're becoming, you made some decisions that perhaps you think caused some loss for your children. And I guess my question to you, and one we will probably open up to the entire group, is how much should we care about the loss of our children? Um, how much how much should we stop becoming so that our children don't experience loss? Oh, that's a hard one.
It's one that's been on my mind a lot recently, though. So I really like the question because I have felt different ways about it at different points in time.
Mm,
When we were first getting ready to start traveling and doing that, and that was a big dream of mine, I felt like, well, I'm the adult. I'm the one that gets to make the decisions, and they're just along for the ride. And I felt like, yeah, that's okay. That's the choice that I'm making. In doing that, I can kind of see that they feel like they've had a loss, but also I feel like they didn't we had already moved multiple times. So there wasn't like this strong, like I've lived here my whole entire life.
yeah.
And I have this strong connection to all these friends. We had lived in some other states before. We had had a big flood right before we decided to do all of that. So we were in a different town. We had moved from one town to another, and we've homeschooled always, so we didn't have like a strong school connection or anything like that. So there was nothing that felt super connected. But I think what they look at is they were looking at more things that they would see in TV and the movies and stuff, and they
Yeah.
were going, well, we didn't have that. That's what normal is, and we didn't have that. But that's not even normal, really. Like what you see on TV is never real for anybody. Even
Yeah.
even if you live what is a standard life, the things that are on TV still don't fit into that. And I think that they don't know what they didn't experience,
Right.
right? So they have this rose colored glasses about the life that they didn't get to live. And it would have been like this, except it wouldn't have actually been like that. And
Hmm.
one of the things that I've taken with me the whole time is the fact that the challenges that you go through in life are the things that make
Make
you
you
stronger.
stronger.
They make you become who you are. And so I can't shield my kids from every challenge that they're going to have in life. I, of course, want to do my best and shield them from some challenges, but also whenever I can't shield them from a challenge, I know that that's going to help to form who they become. And I
Absolutely
just
agree.
hope for the best.
I absolutely agree with you. And I think we should carry this conversation on into the 60 minutes, because I have a few things to say. I have a very similar experience as you do with being a nomad. And I think that that might be something that we can talk about with the bigger group that will help us understand this concept of our kids having a loss because of our own becoming, which is a bit tough. I'm going to go to Amanda so we have enough time for everyone. Amanda, you write about the girl that you were before puberty, before life revolved around perception. And you say that the pre-socialized self who knew things before the world taught you what to think, right? Your poem mentions the God of the Father and his country. And you actually left that framework of God and religion, but your parents are still alive and presumably still evangelical. And there's kind of a gap in your essay, and that is, how did your parents respond to that transformation, and what was your experience of loss?
Yes. Interestingly, my parents are a bit lost themselves, and they are definitely still, I would say that they were still Christian. There's been so many issues in the United States with the evangelical church, in the last 10 years, that they do not feel a part of that church that I mentioned in the essay any longer.
Okay.
However, they also don't have a framework of where they want to be going at this point either. And particularly, my mother is almost seeing the path that I am going down, and she's wanting to attempt to travel down that same road herself, except she doesn't have the knowledge, the education, she has no framework at all for what it is that I'm even doing. So it's really just a kind of a poor imitation, and that definitely grates a bit for me. In fact, it grates a lot. I'm in therapy about it, so but yeah, so that's been
So,
something that I've had to grapple with.
yeah, and so what was your experience of loss with that separation? Like, they obviously they're kind of coming nipping at your heels, but what was the loss that you had, the biggest loss that you had making that separation into your new life?
I think that the biggest loss I've experienced is growing up being told a particular way to live and a particular way to think. There is a lot of safety in that. There's a
Yeah.
lot of knowing that comes with it. You are on a firm foundation and you know that you are correct. When you step outside of that box, it not only is scary, it feels like you're in a free fall. And while the freedom is wonderful, you get to pick and choose whatever it is that you like. There's also always this feeling of, but what if I'm wrong? And what if that box that I was in was my safety? And do I need to go crawling back into that box just to not have to think about all of this so much?
Gosh, I think that is like such an important thing for us to talk about later as well, because loss can be loss of security. And I think loss of security and knowledge and surety, more, I guess, than security, is something that happens to all of us in our becoming, right? We were raised to be one thing, we're becoming something else, or even if we're just becoming a different version of what we were raised to be, there's still that issue of losing the surety that kept you safe, like you said. So that's a really interesting thing I'd like to discuss in this salon as well. Thank you for your insight there.
Absolutely.
Susanna, you make a distinction I find absolutely fascinating in your essay, which was hysterical, by the way. Hysterical in a really sad way. But you say you weren't finding yourself because you were not lost. You were excavating yourself because you were buried. Why do you think that particular distinction matters?
What the reason that it mattered to me for so long is because I had spent decades, like the majority up until my mid 40s with abusive men, well, into abusive marriages. And so being in that place of feeling lost that whole time, not recognizing myself in the mirror, not understanding how any of the dynamics at play, because I was very much on autopilot from how I was programmed from the past and my beliefs about myself. And so I did feel lost, but then when I got out of that, and I could look from the outside. I could sort of zoom out, which was really, really important, um, and see it from the outside in instead of from inside the trauma and looking
Mhm.
out. And that's when I felt lost, but then realizing, oh, that girl who was responsible for my healing afterward, because I went and got in touch with her. I went looking for her in the past to see how did she get from age 17 when life was going to be totally awesome, because why wouldn't it be? Because when I was 17, it was like, yeah, life is totally is awesome. I'm invincible and everything's going to continue to be awesome. And so then, so I had to like, and again, I went in search for her, thinking she was out there and
Mhm.
realizing, oh no, she's been there the whole time. And I just couldn't hear her because I turned down the volume on, on her so that I could ignore the red flags and ignore the voices of pending doom and of the truth that was actually happening. Um, so yeah, it was really, it just shifted everything because I realized, oh, this is so much more in my control because she's in there. She's just like there's just layers of trauma
Mhm.
dust, right? Like, and going through those layers one at a time, like where did my beliefs about men, for example, me centering my entire lives around a man, where did that start? That was a layer. Why was my self-worth in the toilet? That was a layer. Why did I not attract? I hate it when people say that, like, you attract these, why do I attract these assholes or narcissists or whatever? It's not about attracting, because that means that there would be something inherently wrong with me. And I already had enough self-esteem problems. But why did I have my door open for them to walk in? And once they walked in, why did I let them stay?
Mhm.
So all of these were layers that I had to go through. And then once I was digging her up, I had my little Indiana Jones hat on, just like, okay, here we go. And funny thing is, I always wanted to be an archaeologist, so I got to be one.
Okay, a
Um,
different kind.
yeah, just a different kind. Yeah. And so
But
and that's when I was removing those layers, um, that's when I could finally hear her. It's like she was screaming from down and I
mhm.
just couldn't hear her before.
This is a little bit off of the theme of loss, but it does kind of apply to a theme that again I want to discuss in the larger group, and that is this issue of curation. One of the things, I mean, the salon is all about curation, right? It's all about deciding like what voices should be heard, what questions should be asked, what issues and problems we should be thinking about. And I think, Susanna, what you undertook was a curation of self, right? Just like there's piles of dusty paintings, bad paintings in a museum that don't get hung on the wall or do get hung on the walls because nobody curates. And I mean, maybe that does relate to loss in a way that maybe we should be curating our losses, right? And so back to Lesley's point of I need to become, and I have children that I'm taking on my becoming, right? Or to Amanda's point of, I need to leave this environment that is not good for me, and I know what I'm going to lose when I do that, I'm going to lose my sense of surety and my sense of safety. I mean, maybe what we are talking about here today is being able to curate our losses and decide which losses are worth our becoming. So maybe that's the question that we're trying to address. Let's find out. Let's have everyone join us. Here we are at another technical transition. So bear with me in case I completely screw this up. I'm going to say goodbye to everyone who joined us live on YouTube and say thank you very much for joining. And if you would like to join the 60-minute discussion, you can easily do so by just submitting a piece for consideration for the salon. Everyone who submits a piece gets a free ticket to join the salon. So I'm going to